The clash of armies fades, the dust settles. What remains on the board are a few soldiers, a single horse, and a cornered king. There are no real weapons here, no blood or smoke, only moves and ideas. Yet, for more than 15 centuries, this quiet game has mirrored the chaos of war and the complexity of human thought. Chess is more than just a pastime. It has been a symbol of intelligence, a lesson in patience, and a reflection of how people plan, lead, and adapt. Its story stretches across continents and centuries, shaped by conquerors, philosophers, and dreamers. Most historians trace the earliest version of chess to ancient India, around the 6th century CE, during the height of the Gupta Empire. Back then, it was called Chaturanga, a Sanskrit term meaning the 4 divisions of the army. Those divisions, infantry, cavalry, elephants, and chariots, represented the major units of ancient Indian warfare. Each one had its own movement and role on the board, and together they formed a strategy to protect the king. Unlike the fast-paced, calculated game we know today, Chaturanga was slower and more symbolic. It was often played by nobles and scholars, not for competition, but for study and reflection. The board, called the ashtāpada, had 64 squares, but no alternating colors. Dice were sometimes used to determine which piece could move, giving the game an element of chance, something that later versions would abandon. A popular legend tells of a grieving Indian queen who lost her son in battle. To comfort her, one of the court scholars designed a game that recreated the battlefield, showing how strategy and fate decide victory as much as bravery. Whether or not the story is true, it captures the spirit of how chess began, as a way to understand life and loss through logic. From India, the game traveled westward into Persia, where it evolved and gained a new name, shatranj. The Persians refined the rules, removed the dice, and emphasized skill over luck. They also gave us many of the words still used today. The Persian word shah means king, and shah mat means the king is helpless. Over time, this became checkmate. Shatranj was played in royal courts and enjoyed by Persian scholars and poets alike. It was not merely a game, but a form of intellectual training. One early Persian text described it as a test of foresight, patience, and wisdom, qualities every ruler should possess. When the Islamic Empire conquered Persia in the 7th century, chess spread rapidly throughout the Arab world. Muslim scholars admired its logical depth, and caliphs kept sets in their palaces. The famous historian al-Masudi praised chess as a demonstration of free will, arguing that unlike games of luck, chess rewarded skill and intellect. It became a favorite pastime among philosophers, merchants, and generals. As the Islamic Empire expanded, so too did chess. Through trade routes like the Silk Road, it reached Central Asia, China, and Southeast Asia, where it began to branch into new forms. Each region reshaped it to match its culture and traditions. In China, chess transformed into a different game called xiangqi, or Chinese chess. Here, the board represented a battlefield divided by a river, with pieces placed on the intersections of lines rather than inside the squares. The elephant became an advisor, the chariot remained strong, and cannons were introduced, a unique Chinese addition that made the game faster and more dynamic. Meanwhile, in Japan, another version called shogi took root. Shogi introduced a rule that no other form of chess had. Captured pieces could be returned to the board under the control of the capturing player. This feature made shogi endlessly strategic and unpredictable, with power constantly shifting between opponents. Across Southeast Asia, still other versions appeared. Makruk in Thailand, Situyin in Myanmar, and Chaturanga in India, which was a 4-player variation played with dice. All shared a common ancestor, but evolved independently, shaped by local traditions and imagination. But while the East developed its own branches, it was in medieval Europe that chess began to take on the form we recognize today. The game likely arrived there through multiple routes, by way of Islamic Spain, through Sicily, and possibly via returning crusaders. By the 10th century, chess had become a popular pastime among European nobility. In monasteries and royal courts, it was seen as more than entertainment. Teachers used chess as a moral and social allegory, comparing the pieces to roles within society. The king symbolized leadership, the bishop represented the church, the knight stood for courage, and the pawn reflected the common people whose labor supported all others. At the same time, not everyone approved of the game. Some religious leaders viewed it as a distraction from faith or an excuse for gambling. Chess was briefly banned in places like France and England, though the prohibitions rarely lasted. Even moralists who condemned it admitted that the game's lessons in patience and strategy made it hard to resist. By the 13th century, chess had spread across nearly all of Europe, from Italy to Scandinavia. Its rules still differed from region to region, but the structure, a checkered board, 16 pieces per side, and the goal of capturing the opposing king remained constant. The pieces themselves began to reflect European society. The elephant of Indian chaturanga became the bishop, echoing the growing influence of the church. The vizier or royal counselor from Persian shatranj transformed into the queen, though she was still a weak piece with limited movement. The rook, originally a chariot, became a tower or castle, symbols of medieval defense. Chess sets from this era were often beautifully carved from ivory, wood, or stone, representing kings, knights, and warriors dressed in medieval armor. The famous Lewis chessmen, discovered in Scotland and dating to the 12th century, offer a glimpse into how the game looked in this period. Each piece carved with care, each face full of character. By the 14th century, chess had established itself firmly in European culture. It was a pastime for nobles, monks, and even monarchs. Kings like Henry III of England and Philip II of France were said to play regularly. Books and poems compared love and politics to the moves of the game, using the board as a metaphor for human ambition. Yet, the chess of medieval Europe was still slow and methodical. A single match could last for hours, even days. That would soon change, because by the 15th century, a dramatic transformation was coming, one that would turn chess from a royal diversion into the fast, tactical battle we recognize today. By the middle of the 15th century, chess in Europe was on the verge of a revolution. For centuries, the game had moved at a steady pace, with long, slow maneuvers and limited options. Matches could stretch endlessly, sometimes with no winner at all. But as Europe changed, through exploration, new ideas, and powerful monarchs, chess changed with it. The most dramatic transformation came from a single piece, the queen. In earlier versions, she was weak, moving only one square diagonally. But during the late 1400s, she gained new power. Now, she could move any number of squares in any direction, combining the strength of rook and bishop. This shift sped up the game and added a burst of energy that reshaped how it was played. Historians believe this change was inspired by the growing influence of strong female rulers in Europe, such as Isabella III of Castile. As her political power grew, so too did the symbolic power of the queen on the board. The game began to mirror the real world more closely, reflecting ambition, power, and sudden change. Other rules evolved as well. The pawn gained the option to move 2 squares on its first move. Capturing en passant and castling, both designed to balance attack and defense, were standardized. The combination of these updates transformed chess from a slow simulation of war into a fast-paced contest of creativity and logic. By the 16th century, the new version of chess was spreading rapidly across Europe. Books began to appear explaining openings, tactics, and strategies. The first known printed chess manual was written in 1474 by the Spanish priest Luis Ramirez de Lucena, who described methods that still influence players today. Chess became a mark of education and culture. Aristocrats learned it as part of courtly life, scholars used it to train reasoning, and travelers carried it across borders. It was both a game and a language of the intellect. By the 17th century, chess had reached coffeehouses, the new centers of discussion and debate in European cities. In Paris, London, and Vienna, players met to test their skill and exchange ideas. The Café de la Régence in Paris became particularly famous, attracting thinkers like Voltaire, Rousseau, and Napoleon Bonaparte. Within its smoke-filled rooms, matches could decide pride, reputation, and sometimes even political favor. This was the era of the romantic style of chess. Players valued bold attacks, daring sacrifices, and brilliant checkmates over long-term planning. Beauty and imagination were prized as much as victory. One of the most celebrated examples of this spirit came much later, in 1851, during a casual game between Adolf Anderssen and Lionel Kieseritzky. In what became known as the Immortal Game, Anderssen sacrificed both rooks and his queen to deliver a stunning checkmate using only minor pieces. It was a masterpiece of creativity, a symbol of how chess could be both logic and art. But before that golden moment, the foundations of competitive chess had already begun forming. In 1769, a mysterious invention called the Mechanical Turk amazed audiences across Europe. It appeared to be a machine that could play chess by itself, defeating most challengers. In reality, a human player was hidden inside, operating the mechanisms. Though it was a trick, the idea of a machine playing chess captured people's imagination and hinted at the future connection between chess and technology. By the early 19th century, organized play began to take shape. Clubs were formed in cities like London and Berlin, and the first formal tournaments appeared. Chess theory developed quickly as players analyzed openings and studied endgames in detail. Manuals and newspapers published famous games, allowing people across the continent to follow matches as if they were sporting events. In 1834, a legendary match between Louis-Charles Mahe de la Bourdonnais of France and Alexander MacDonald of Ireland became one of the first great rivalries in chess history. Their six-game contest, played in London, captured public attention and set the stage for international competition. As chess spread, it also began to evolve into a serious discipline. The Romantic style, with its dramatic sacrifices and sudden attacks, remained popular, but a new approach was emerging. Players like Wilhelm Steinitz argued that success came not from wild moves, but from careful planning and understanding of structure. He introduced the idea of positional play, focusing on long-term advantages, piece coordination, and the balance of attack and defense. Steinitz's ideas transformed chess from a battlefield of emotions into a science of patterns. In 1886, he defeated Johannes Zukertort in the first officially recognized World Chess Championship, becoming the game's first world champion. His victory marked the beginning of a new era, where calculation and consistency mattered more than pure intuition. The late 19th century saw the rise of great thinkers who expanded on Steinitz's theories. Players like Emanuel Lascar, Siegbert Tarrasch, and José Raúl Capablanca refined the art of chess into something methodical and deeply strategic. Lascar, a mathematician and philosopher, held the world title for 27 years, longer than anyone before or since. Capablanca, from Cuba, became known for his effortless style and flawless endgames. His games were so clear and logical that he was often called the human chess machine. At the same time, the public's fascination with chess only grew. Tournaments became social events, attracting crowds who followed the matches move by move in newspapers. New openings were named, studied, and debated. The Ruy Lopez, Queen's Gambit, and Sicilian Defense all took root during this period. By the early 20th century, chess had established itself as an international sport. National federations formed, and players began traveling across continents to compete. In 1924, the Fédération Internationale des Échecs, FIDE, the International Chess Federation, was founded in Paris, giving structure to world competition. As global communication improved, so did the spread of ideas. Players could now study their opponents' styles, read annotated games, and prepare new strategies. The level of play rose dramatically. Matches became less about luck or inspiration, and more about deep preparation and mental endurance. Still, the romantic heart of the game never completely disappeared. Players continued to admire those who could combine precision with imagination. Great champions like Alexander Alekhine demonstrated that calculation and creativity could coexist. His 1930s games were filled with complex attacks and brilliant sacrifices, proof that even in the age of science, chess remained an art form. By the outbreak of World War II, chess had truly become a global phenomenon. It was played in palaces and prisons, schools and ships. It connected people across languages and borders, offering a peaceful battle fought only with thought. And as the world prepared for real war, chess was about to enter a new kind of conflict, one fought not only on the board, but also between nations and ideologies. Because the next chapter would see chess become more than a game. It would become a symbol of the Cold War, a stage where East and West tested not just their players, but their ideas. When the smoke of the Second World War cleared, chess found itself on an entirely new battlefield. Not one of nations at war, but of ideas. The coming decades would turn chess into a quiet weapon of the Cold War, where intelligence, patience, and mental power became measures of strength between East and West. The Soviet Union, determined to prove its intellectual superiority, invested heavily in chess. It was taught in schools, funded by the state, and celebrated in the media. The results were staggering. From the late 1940s to the early 1990s, almost every world chess champion was Soviet. Legends like Mikhail Botvinnik, Vasily Smyslov, Tigran Petrosian, Anatoly Karpov, and of course Garry Kasparov became national heroes. For them, chess was not just a pastime, it was a matter of pride, discipline, and political symbolism. Their dominance wasn't accidental. Soviet players trained with military precision, studying openings, endgames, and psychological endurance. Teams of analysts supported each champion, preparing deep strategies to outthink opponents. To the outside world, these grandmasters seemed like human computers, but the Cold War also had its rebels. In 1972, a tall, eccentric American named Bobby Fischer broke through the Iron Curtain of Soviet dominance. His match against Boris Spassky in Reykjavik, Iceland, wasn't just a world championship. It was treated like a global showdown. Cameras rolled, politicians watched, and millions followed every move. When Fischer won, it was seen as a triumph, not only for the man, but for the West itself. Fischer's genius, however, came with obsession. After his victory, he withdrew from public life, refusing to defend his title. Yet his influence never faded. His passion, creativity, and uncompromising will inspired a new generation of players around the world. As the Cold War ended, a new opponent stepped forward, not a nation, but a machine. For centuries, people had wondered if a human mind could ever be matched by an artificial one. In 1997, that question was answered when Deep Blue, a supercomputer built by IBM, defeated world champion Garry Kasparov. For the first time in history, a computer had beaten the greatest living chess player in a full match. The moment shocked the world. To some, it was unsettling, proof that machines could now outthink their creators. But to others, it was a celebration of human achievement. After all, Deep Blue's victory was itself a product of human creativity, programming, and innovation. From that point on, technology and chess became inseparable. Today, chess engines like Stockfish and AlphaZero can calculate millions of positions per second, exploring possibilities no human could ever see. Yet instead of replacing players, these tools have transformed how people learn and play. Grandmasters now use them as training partners, and beginners rely on them as teachers. In the 21st century, the digital age has given chess a new life. Online platforms connect millions of players instantly across the globe. What once required physical boards and handwritten notation now happens on phones and screens in real time. Chess has become faster, more accessible, and more popular than ever before. Streaming platforms and social media have turned chess into entertainment once again. Influencers, comedians, and even esports professionals play for audiences of millions. The game that began as a royal pastime and became a weapon of ideology now thrives as a shared global passion. And despite all the changes, from wooden boards to glowing screens, from knights on horseback to lines of code, the heart of chess remains the same. Two minds, one battle, infinite possibilities. So whether you see it as war, art, science, or play, Chess continues to remind us of the power of human thought and of how every move, no matter how small, can shape the course of history. If you enjoyed this journey through the centuries of chess, from ancient empires to artificial intelligence, make your next move count. Like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell icon so you don't miss the next story from history, strategy, and beyond.